Good evening and welcome everybody. Greg Esterbrooks here from Your TV North Bay. The long-awaited mayoral debate live here on Your TV is set to begin. The four candidates who are vying for the mayor's seat in a couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks, are here to debate the important issues. It's of course co-sponsored by the North Bay and District Chamber of Commerce. The gentlemen have drawn lots to see who goes first. I'm going to read an introduction. They're going to have 1 minute for each candidate to read their introductions after I introduce them, and then we'll open up to questions and debate. Will Besoin, who crafted his own introduction, won the draw to go first, so I'm going to read Will's introduction. Again, I want to stress, written by the candidates, all four of them. Weighing in at 263.4 pounds, wearing the yellow suit, t-shirt, the future mayor of North Bay, Will. With a youthful mind, bringing new and exciting ideas to increase our population and our tax base. Will Besoin, who lives downtown and will forge North Bay into the future with ideas of Red Bull air racing, vertical farming, SpaceX, and Tesla companies. North Bay will grow, says Will, teaming up with the university and college, creating great paying jobs and increasing our tax base so we can actually clean our sidewalks and roads in the winter. Will Besoin, you have a minute.
How's it going? I'm Will and I'm running for mayor in North Bay. I've lived in North Bay for 8 years now. It's become my city and I love it up here. I'd like to welcome Al back to the city. Now, to get down to it, I look at using the airport for Red Bull racing, air racing to bring them into town, as well as SpaceX. Our airport, our Air Force Base was designed to launch rockets, and we might as well get a private space company in here to do that. I also look at teaming up with Nipissing and Canadore and bringing them into the downtown core and into Ferris with different programs to include vertical farming. The arena debate, we put the arena on the campus for them. They would give us a Ferris campus. North Bay in the last 8 years has lost 6,000 taxpayers. We need to change that around, bring more people to town, more good paying jobs. And currently I'm on the line with nobody and I'm a true voice for North Bay and will only do what's great for the city.
Thank you.
Vote for Will.
Next up, Al McDonald. Al has served as a former MPP in the riding of Nipissing in provincial parliament, of course. Mayor for 8 years, deputy mayor, councillor, supporter, and backer of numerous causes, events, and teams. Al has been instrumental in many fundraising endeavors, such as the Coldest Night, Save Laurentian Ski Hill, the North Bay Regional Health Centre, to name a few. As a business leader, Al has built local businesses employing hundreds of people throughout the years and has invested in and supported other businesses and business interests in our community. Al is an optimist who believes deeply in the potential and future of North Bay. Al McDonald, you have a minute.
First, I'd like to thank the Chamber and Cogeco for providing this opportunity this evening. Under my leadership, we set the table for future growth by investing over $120 million in infrastructure. We created 127 serviced acres of land at our airport industrial park. We created Invest North Bay. We reduced municipal debt and increased reserves. The stage is set for my vision for the future, including a public-private development downtown, a plan for West Ferris, and a plan to change the way council conducts business. We need to grow, not shrink or cut. We need to invite business and industry, and we need to welcome newcomers to increase our population and increase our tax base. We have an outstanding quality of life here in the city: beaches, golf courses, trails, ski hills, a university and college, and so much more. And we're the only city in Northern Ontario with a 4-lane highway to Toronto. Vote for Al McDonald. Help me grow North Bay, a great city, a great place to work, and a great place to live and raise a family.
Sheldon Frigette is up next. Sheldon was born and raised in North Bay by single mother Julie. Sheldon started his own computer repair company in 2011 and rebranded it in 2013 to Computer Doctors. Sheldon moved to Ottawa for work at age 19. During this time, Sheldon gained a great passion for politics, so in 2014, he ran successfully for North Bay City Council. Sheldon garnered the most votes, which gave him the appointment of deputy mayor, budget chief, and chair of general government. Sheldon is an extremely motivated individual. He lived in poverty during his youth and swore that he would rise above and help people any way he could. Sheldon Forget, you have a minute.
Thanks for the introduction, Greg, and I just want to welcome all our viewers at home, and I want to thank the North Bay and District Chamber of Commerce for hosting this debate and Your TV for having us here. My name is Sheldon Forget, and I'm very passionate about our city. I want to see our city grow, and a couple of my campaign planks are to revitalize Lakeshore Drive in West Ferris by widening Lakeshore Drive and creating a parkway with a left-hand turn to make it easier while you're driving down Lakeshore. Another campaign plank is to clean up our city. A city our size should have between 107 and 134 police officers, and we currently only have 96. And another plank would be to bring back the spirit of the Heritage Festival. I could remember when I was a kid going to the Heritage Festival. It was a tremendous event in our city, and I'd like to see it come back. I'd like to see all the smaller events come back to it, like the Country Open, the Strongman competition, the Firefighter Challenge. And I'd like to focus on the little things and work for you.
Thank you, Sheldon. Gary Gardner is fourth. Gary Gardner was born in Chatham, Ontario in 1954. After graduating from Simon Fraser University, Gary pursued a career in high-performance sport. He was the national director for the 1992 Olympic wrestling team and later served as the CEO of Judo Canada. In 1997, Gary moved to North Bay to be with his partner, Catherine Hunter, where he enjoyed a successful second career designing and building homes. He became involved in North Bay City Council when water meters were first introduced and was successful at advocating for a single water billing system that treats homeowners and commercial users equally. Gary Gardner, you have 1 minute.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I too would like to thank the Chamber and Cogeco for hosting this event. I think it gives an opportunity for the viewers to get to know the candidates and also to get to know what some of the issues the city is facing. Prior to moving to North Bay, I lived in the cities of Vancouver and the city of Ottawa. And during my time in Ottawa, working at the National Sports Centre, I got the opportunity to travel the world. And in doing so, I got to see what it took to make cities great. Ultimately, it's things like arts and culture, heritage, clean streets, safe streets, and food and drink. And these things create a vitality and an energy and a sense of place. I see North Bay with unlimited potential to be a great city. If elected mayor, I will use my skills that I've acquired and work with city staff and councillors to move this city forward towards growth and prosperity.
We are going to move now to our questions, and the format will be as follows. First question will be to Will. He will get 1 minute, and then we'll open it up to some debate. Will, thanks for your opening remarks. If you were to prioritize your platform, what is priority number one for Will Besoin?
Priority number one is to continue with Red Bull, get the smart people in North Bay actually taking over this instead of a pipe fitter. That there could create great tourism, jobs, you know, the restaurants would flourish. The next thing would be using our airport once again with SpaceX and bringing in a private space company.
Okay, I'm going to open up debate. Anybody want? Al, you can go first.
Great. My first priority would be the changing the procedural bylaw, and I know that really isn't a sexy topic, but if we want to modernize our council and our city, we need to do that. So right now, committee chairs have the ability to pull items right off the agenda without council being able to debate it. I want to remove that because I think council should enter into the debate, and I think council should be, or sorry, staff should be at the table so that if councillors have some questions, they can ask staff so it's clarified so that the motions can go through council very quickly. So it's really about modernizing our city and moving our city forward.
Al, I got to cut you off there. Gary or Sheldon, no specific order. Go ahead, Gary.
Here. I mean, last year we already changed the procedural bylaw, and what this council did was they took more public presentations. They reduced the number of presentations allowed. They also forced people to register a week in advance. And so in terms of procedural bylaw, we had an opportunity to actually include people and make it more open. And in fact, we've reduced it. So, Al, you signed the bylaw that put that into effect.
Al?
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Gardner's question. So we have unlimited presentations on council nights. Yes, you have to phone the clerk just to register, but there's 3 10 minutes and unlimited number of 5 minutes. My platform that I put out is that we're going to add a day to presentations. So on a Monday, individuals that maybe can't make Tuesday can make presentations. So in my platform, I'm actually raising the number of days that you can make presentations. But to say that we've cut down the number of presentations absolutely isn't true, and Mr. Gardner knows that.
Sheldon, do you want to weigh in, or do I move on?
Well, I mean, we already did change the procedural bylaw not too long ago.
And you're in favor of it?
And, well, the only thing I would say to it is that we go back to weekly meetings. And not only that, but I would like to have meetings where the mayor and council could actually have team building sessions. And I think it's important for us to work as a team to move our city forward.
Will?
I'd just like to point out this is just like the regular bickering back and forth in council that you get. So we need a new change where this won't happen. We already wasted money and time on the issue, and he wants to bring it up again. We shouldn't do that, not wasting the taxpayers' money.
All right, we are going to go to, we have video questions tonight. Yes, we have video questions tonight, and it does talk about council. This first video question about council maybe getting along better. There's a lot of history out there and histrionics at times at City Council. Mike Campagato had a video question. We're going to go to that now. The people that are running this campaign and participating in the campaign will have a chance to see it too.
Hi, my name is Mike Campagato. I'm the CEO of Safe Site Exploration. My question for the candidates is this: with the need for dramatic change in our community and a new council elected, can you identify 2 things that you would do to create a sense of team and ensure that there's facilitated consensus to get your agenda and their agenda completed?
Thank you, Mr. Campagato. Will, 2 things. Oh, sorry, to Al. Sorry, this one goes to Al. Sorry.
Well, I have a couple of things. I know I only have a minute, so there's no question that last term was very challenging. We actually had members of council suing one another. That started our term. So what I'd like to do is change the procedural bylaw that'll allow all members of council to be able to debate and have staff at the table so that the councillors, if they have any questions, they can ask it. I also want to allow council members to be able to make member statements about their concerns or great items in the community. I think that's what you see in the legislature and the House of Commons. I want to allow council to debate the issues so that staff can be the resources so they can ask for staff. But we have to remind ourselves that each individual that was elected come from different aspects of our community. It could be either social, it could be economic, or it could be environmental. So, but once a decision's made, all of council needs to get behind it. In my experience, 95% of motions were unanimous that went through council, but for whatever reason, council got caught up in the little ones. So I just want to have councillors be able to debate all the issues.
All right, thank you, Al.
Okay,
everybody,
Mike,
go ahead. Gary, go
Mike,
first if you want.
Thanks for the question. So, you know, we're going to have a brand new set of councillors, and they've ran in this election based on promises. And I think the first thing that council needs to do as a group is they need to sit down and they have to look at everybody's priorities, and we have to actually, as a team, as a council, we have to formulate what are the goals and what are the priorities going to be for this council going forward. And if we build consensus that way and we ask everybody what are their important issues that they want to bring forward, and then we can agree as a team what will be the ones that we're going to focus on, and that way we can move things forward in a positive and effective manner.
How do you plan on doing that? How would you plan on doing that?
In terms of building consensus?
Yes.
Well, you know, you're going to talk to each individual councillor individually and as a group, and you're going to find out what their priorities are, right? You want to listen to them. It's not about I, it's about we. And so you have to start at the grassroots, ground level, and find out what they want. Okay, Will or Sheldon? And Al can jump in too.
So if I'm fortunate, Mike, first of all, thanks for your question. If I'm fortunate to be elected mayor, what I'm going to be doing first of all is meeting with the existing council and existing mayor to basically debrief on their files. The next thing I'm going to be doing is meeting with the new council, and I'm going to go through their agenda of items that they would like to move forward with, and I'm going to attempt to bridge the gap. One thing I'd like to do is have more of a full-time council. I think if you want to move your city from a population of 54,000 to 100,000, you need to have a full-time team working at it together. And the other thing I would do, as I said earlier, was to have team building sessions. I think it's important for us as a council to come together, not just to vote on items, but also to work as a team and brainstorm.
Over to Al McDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. All great ideas. We do it every year anyways. My past 2 terms, as soon as we got elected, I sat down with every member of council, including the deputy mayor, and welcomed them to council to find out what their priorities are. And as I said, 95% of the motions that come through council are unanimous. The only time that you actually even see concentrated vote would be the budget, where it's always 9-2. But the vast majority of the motions that are going through are unanimous. It's always there's always 2 individuals fighting back and forth, and that was our challenge. But the rest of council did work very well together.
Will, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, for a sense of team, once again being 100% neutral, not associated with any associations or current council members or anyone with an agenda. I would be a neutral and once again a vote for the city that will listen to everybody to bring what's best for North Bay.
All right, we're going to move on to question number 4. This one is addressed first to Sheldon Frechette, who gets a minute, and then we can throw it open for debate. How many hours a week? You kind of already answered it, but I'm going to get you to answer it a little more in depth. Would you feel everyone should commit to the office of mayor?
Well, it's a great question. First of all, I think the office of mayor should be full-time along with the members of council. When you look at council overall, most of them have another full-time job or a business on the side. And my question to that is, how do you focus on building the city if you have another job or if you're trying to run a company? How do you stay on top of all your duties as a councillor? So I would say that it's got to be a full-time job.
Well, let me ask you this question, Sheldon. I mean, I'm approximating here, but councillors make in the range of $24,000, $25,000 a year. If they have a family to feed, that's not enough money, so they probably would need something on the side. How can they devote all their time to council if they have a family, like you do?
No, absolutely, and you got to pay a fair wage so they can support a family.
So you advocating for a hike in wages?
Well, I'm advocating for a full-time council, and you know, part of having a full-time council is paying people a proper wage so they can support their families. So right now, with the wage, you either have to be independently wealthy to be on council or retired, and that's just not right. You got brilliant people coming out of university.
10 seconds, Sheldon.
You have brilliant people who are coming out of university, and it doesn't make any sense for them to go on a city council because it doesn't pay enough. You know, if we want to move our city forward, we need bright people on our council.
Okay, Gary.
Okay, so
or anybody, but Gary.
You know,
next.
when I decided that I was going to run for council, I realized that it's a difficult decision, and I realized I'm going to put my life on hold for 4 years. I'm really not going to be able to do all the things I want to do with my family because this council and this city will come as a priority. So the other thing I have to say about in terms of work hours is that you have to learn to be effective, right? And we know from studies, I know I took kinesiology in university, that you know, after about 8 hours, you're not effective anymore, and you should probably take a break. So I would commit to at least 8 hours a day, and I would commit to some time on weekends. But I think after that, you're fooling yourself if you think you're being effective.
Anybody? Al, put his hand up first.
There's no question the mayor's role is 24/7, and I work 80 hours a week. I have the enthusiasm and drive and energy, and I have a passion for the city. There is demands for from businesses to go to ribbon cuttings. I know my opponents make fun of me going to the ribbon cuttings, but it's a strong signal that I send to business and industry that the mayor is very supportive. Our community organizations ask for the mayor to go, so I go to it. So that's over and above. I will say that if you're not going to go to ribbon cuttings, and Mr. Gardner just said that he might work some weekends, the role of the mayor is like almost 7 days a week.
I said I would work weekends, Al. I didn't say some weekends, and I said I would go to some ribbon cuttings, but I said I want to create an opportunity for other councillors to also go to ribbon cuttings so that they can get out into the community and they can get to know people and find out from the community what their concerns are.
I don't disagree with councillors going to ribbon cuttings. They're invited to them anyway. So they're all public events. It's not like a private event when you do an opening of business. All the media goes, the public goes. The councillors are always welcome to go. The runs, the walks, the community events, they're all published on Tanger. You could see all the events. So
Okay,
I know.
I'll cut you off there and give Will a few seconds, and we're going to go to a break.
Typical squawking between the association and the council. How many hours? I'm a small business owner, so I already put 80 to 120 hours in a week. Always working, I always work weekends and days, so no problem throwing that in for the city to make a change. Yeah, so
Okay.
I'm raring to go.
Thank you, Will. Things are starting to heat up a little bit. We are going to go to a break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes with more of the live Chamber of Commerce, Your TV, North Bay Mayoral Debate, live again on Your TV. Back in a couple. Welcome back, everybody. Greg Esterbrooks here live in the studio at Your TV North Bay. We are continuing on now with the mayoral debate, also sponsored by the North Bay and District Chamber of Commerce. We're about 25 minutes in, so a long way to go. Question number 5 goes first to Gary Gardner. Specifically, what opportunities do you see for new business in our community?
Okay, so you know, we have all the ingredients here to create entrepreneurship. We have different groups that, like ION, for example, that help entrepreneurs. We have groups like the Northern Ontario Angels, which help fund entrepreneurs. But I think what we're lacking is an overall coordination and leadership from City Hall to put all these groups together and to figure out how we can actually attract these entrepreneurs into the city, and how can we mentor them, how can we support them, and how can we help them start new businesses.
20 seconds. How specifically, how would you think this should be done differently then?
Well, I think the city can have a lead role in that. I think we can pull all the partners and stakeholders in together, and we can figure out where the gaps are, and we can figure out how could we co-locate all these groups that help businesses into one area, so it's a one-stop shopping for entrepreneurs.
Okay, it's open. Go ahead, anybody? Sheldon?
So yeah, no, it's a great question, and what I would say is there's tremendous opportunities here in North Bay, and a recent opportunity was I went to meet with a professional boat racing company, and I got to show them our waterfront, and I even showed them Trout Lake as well, and you know, they were so impressed that it sounds like they're going to be coming to North Bay next year to have professional boat racing. Now, if I could line that up with the Summer in the Park Festival, that would be just something else. But you know, with specifics, we can do micro manufacturing here. Our airport industrial park is primed for growth. You know, we have $72 million in the bank, and you know, we need to use that money to start growing our city. We need to fund economic development, and you know, the mayor and council needs to play a specific role in going out there and attracting business to our city. And you know, with specifics, technology is a huge area where we can attract more technology professionals here to our city because the internet is so vast. Anybody?
Al?
Sure.
Okay. Will?
Well, first off, we'll be teaming up with the university. We'll be bringing them downtown. We're going to sell the Capital Center to the university. They'll use that as a class.
This, Will?
Yeah, I had a talk with the president there, and they seemed interested in the idea. Also look at bringing a campus to one of the industries that we bring into West Ferris. Use our airport. It's sitting there, so let's bring in Red Bull Air Racing. Let's talk to a private space company like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic. They all launch out of an Air Force base, and ours was designed to launch rockets, so we're on the top of a very short list.
Just
Al McDonald. Al first, then you, Gary.
So first I'd waive the Nugget article where the Sudbury is saying that North Bay is the greatest place to do business. I thought that was just a great article. couple of points, though. We have the lowest industrial tax ratios in the province. We have a 20-year reduction plan for commercial taxes. We have 120 acres of service land up at our industrial park. We're having great success. Invest North Bay was created, which really brought all the business people together, and their focus is really on attracting business to our community. An example of that would be the Canadian Meat Packers facility that was just announced, creating 60 jobs. And I would be remiss of not mentioning our economic staff who are punching way above their weight.
Okay, so just as a follow-up to that, you know, we want to create new jobs, et cetera, but one of the easiest ways to do that is to help our current businesses retain their retain what they're doing, find out what it is that we can do to help them move their business, expand their business, create new jobs for employees within the existing businesses. And we've got a great mining sector here. It's got a great history. We've got the Ontario Northland, also has a great history. And how can we help?
Well, I'm asking you, how do you think they can help in 10 seconds?
How can I help Ontario Northland? Because we can sit down with them, we can meet with them, we can find out just little things that we could do in terms of helping promote what they do, how they sell their product.
Get you in a bit, Sheldon.
Yeah, so all fair points from all candidates. Another thing I'd like to say is that we do have some red tape in the city of North Bay, and I think that we should be reducing red tape. You know, when you look at specifically Summer in the Park, if you want to be a vendor in Summer in the Park, you got to have a business plan written out. You got to have $5 million in liability insurance. There's all kinds of things you have to have just to be a vendor. When you reduce red tape, it's easier to do business. And I think that if we can do that, then it'll be beneficial for the city.
Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, Economic 101 is retention and expansion, and our staff do that. They do an incredible job with that, and Mayor and Council gets involved in that thing. So we visit businesses, our staff visit businesses. As a matter of fact, our staff get a lot of kudos on the expansion and retention part. But I'll be very clear, that's Economic Development 101, and we've been doing it for 10 years.
Will.
101, but nothing's happened, and we're losing jobs. We got to change something here.
How do you, where? Be a little more specific.
Bring in new businesses. We can't step on the toes of the companies in town. We have to go attract businesses that other people don't. Using our airport for SpaceX, attracting in the Red Bull that I've been talking to, creating, say, vertical farming, because world hunger is going to be huge. We have Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal, or even northern Canada.
Just to jump in there, Greg, when I traveled the province earlier this year, when I was working with Elections Ontario, what I did was I went through different cities. I got to meet with different mayors, but I also took the opportunity to go see different manufacturing facilities while I was there. And because they were kind of intrigued of my age and my position, you know, they kind of welcomed me in, and I kind of got to talk to them about what we have here in North Bay. And when they took that opportunity to sit with me, I was able to actually say, you know, this is what we got, this is what we could do, and now they're intrigued, now they're looking at our city.
Another video question, this one from Mr. Peter Rooney. It's about post-secondary institutions, long-term in the city. Let's take a look at that.
I'm Peter Rooney, a partner at Kennedy Insurance Brokers here in North Bay. Given the fact that the post-secondary institutions in our district are some of the major employers, both public and private, how do you foresee supporting them and at the same time including them in our economic strategies going forward?
All right, Will Boisson gets to answer that question first, and then we'll throw it around. Go ahead, Will.
Great question, Peter. I look at bringing the university into downtown North Bay with the Capital Centre. I pulled that idea from Yoit down in Durham. When Oshawa lost General Motors, the university came downtown, opened the theater, faculty facility, a library. I'm looking to lease out our library. Our library currently costs us $3.7 million a year, which is crazy. So let's bring the university in, help reduce that cost. And I've also talked to them about bringing in a West Ferris campus for either vertical farming or something towards a private space company if we get one.
All right, it's open for a greater debate about post-secondary education. institutions growing the city?
So,
Sheldon.
So thank you very much, Peter, for the question. What I first want to say is that we have a lot of great partnerships already with our post-secondary education partners, Nipissing, Canadore, CTS, and what I think it's important to note is that the student population is a huge economic driving force in our city, and you know, we got to support that. And you know, some of the ways we can do that is by promoting the city, partnering with Nipissing and Canadore. You know, there was recent discussions about potentially doing a partnership ice pad rink with Nipissing. I don't know what happened to those discussions. You know, but I think if we were to do some sort of partnership with Nipissing on an ice pad, it would be good for our city, and not only an ice pad, but an indoor
got to open it up
green field.
to anybody else who wants to jump in here. Gary?
Okay, yeah, you know, so it's great that we have both a university and we have a college, and if those training programs that they provide can help provide skilled workers to the workforce, and we can tailor it to meet exactly what we need in the workforce. So we meet with you know, our business leaders and we find out what they need and we can tailor that. We'll be so successful, because one of the things that the current business leaders tell us is that there's going to be a shortage of skilled workers, especially as the baby boomers retire. So I think it's really key that we have these facilities here in town.
Okay, before I move on, okay, Al.
Great, thanks, Greg. Well, post-secondary is a green and growing industry in our community, there's no question about it. There's about 1,000 staff up there, over 7,000 students, so it's a great economic impact to our community. I sat on the Learning Library, the Harris Learning Library Capital Campaign, very supportive of the post-production film studio and video. I think it's really important. Working with Carlos Carvello with the expansion of CTS into our downtown core, so there's 50 staff and 270 students, and I meet regularly with the president of both university and colleges. And so we meet every month, and very supportive. I've always been supportive of Canadore and Nipissing, and I think as a council we need to do even more of that.
All right, quickly before we move on to the next question, Will.
And one thing I forgot to mention with the Red Bull air racing, if we can attract that to town, we can also have a college program through Canadore at the aviation campus.
Just to note as well, you know, it's one thing to bring these students to North Bay, but what do they do when they're done their schooling in North Bay? You know, we need to be making sure that they stay here, they find meaningful work here, so that way our city can grow and our population can grow.
As Deputy Mayor, have you done anything in 4 years to make some of those steps maybe a little bit closer?
Absolutely. I've matched students with other businesses. I've matched them with employment opportunities. I'm always
okay,
out there
we're going to
working.
move on to question 8, and I'm sure this one will take up a little bit more time than some of the others. This one goes to Mayor McDonald. Do you think the city is in a good financial position, and why?
Very strong, to be honest. So we've worked really hard on our balance sheet. So we've reduced debt by $5.5 million. So we're down to 58.5. We've increased our cash and investments by 5.5 million up to 72 million. So we absolutely have a strong balance sheet. We've invested over $130 million in the last 4 years in infrastructure. At the same time, we're reducing our debt and increasing our reserves. And I will say this. BDO, which is a well-respected firm in our community, gave staff and council kudos and high marks for the financial position and the clean audit they just went through. The auditor, who is well-respected in our community, had high praise for everyone. There's no question that we still need to get our reserves up, but our city is in sound financial position. Now we have some challenges. We have Castle Home coming down the pipe, we have the arena coming down the pipe, and the police station. So those are the areas that we have to concentrate on. But there's no question that we're in strong financial shape.
Have at her, gentlemen. Who wants to go first?
Okay, you know, I agree. We've done extremely well with our financial management of the city, but realize that that was built on the backs of the taxpayers, and that we really do have, in comparison to the other communities around us, East Ferris and Callander, Nipissing, we have a higher tax rate, significantly higher than those communities. And so when home purchasers go to look at buying homes, they see that as a disadvantage in North Bay, and they tend to want to go where there's a less tax burden. So we need to be mindful of taxes in the city, and we need to make sure that they don't escalate.
Back to Al for a rebuttal.
Yeah, so if you're going to compare a full-service city to a small town that doesn't have transit or doesn't have all the full services, of course the small town's taxes are going to be a little bit less. But if you compare us to the Big Five, in Northern Ontario, we have the 4th lowest residential taxes. Only Sudbury is a little bit lower than us. We have the lowest commercial taxes of the Big Five, and we have the lowest industrial taxes of the Big Five. As a matter of fact, we have the lowest industrial tax ratios in the province. So if we're going to compare us to other communities, let's at least compare us to the same size cities.
Okay, but when people are buying homes, they're looking to buy homes here, not in Thunder Bay, not in Sudbury. They're looking at what is available in Callander, East Ferris, Nipissing versus here in North Bay.
Will?
I think the city's in a good financial position, but once again, through the last 8 years, we've lost 6,000 taxpayers. That's a lot more money that we could have in our budget. We have to look to expand businesses, jobs, incomes to increase our financial well-being and be able to do what we want to do. Right now, we're skipping by. And, you know, we got to create more money for the city.
Sheldon wanted to say something.
Yeah, thank you. So as the budget chair for the last 4 years, I've surrounded myself with good people. The moment the election was done last term, I went and spoke with Derek Sjogren, who's the general manager of Canadian Tire, who got elected to council as well. I did ask him to be my my vice chair of general government to assist with the budget. The other thing to note is that we have a very strong credit rating. It's a AA2. According to Moody's, and we do have $72 million sitting in the bank in cash and cash equivalents. Now, what's important to note also is that the auditors do say we need our reserves to increase, but you know what I say is that I think our reserves are pretty healthy, and I think we need to start putting some of those reserves to work in our city and improving the little things and making our city cleaner and look nicer, so that way growth does come to our city.
Al?
Yeah, I know. I'm very happy that all 4 of us up here agree that the city's in strong financial position. I think that's wonderful, and that's kudos to council and staff and everybody that's worked hard to make that happen. So, kudos to everyone.
Will, go ahead. We're going to stay with us for a little while
That's
longer.
because of council and staff, not because of anyone up here.
And what do you base that theory on?
A lot of hard workers in North Bay City, you know.
I do want to ask, I want to continue on this topic just for a little bit longer. Sheldon, you've talked about the reserves on more occasions, many occasions, I should say, in the media, saying the reserves are too high, but the auditors say they're not too high. Where do we go with this?
I feel like we have $72 million in the bank, and I feel that's a strong number. If our reserves were around the $20 to $30 million mark, I'd be a bit more concerned. But I think $72 million is a very healthy reserve, and to increase taxes just to fill our reserves, to me it doesn't make any sense to go tax our citizens to increase those reserves.
Okay, we're moving on to question 10, or question 9, sorry. This goes to Sheldon Forget first, and then we have the throw it around to everybody else. Outside of the operating budget, which capital projects would you like to see the city spend more on?
Very good question. So for me specifically, I would like to see an indoor soccer field happen in North Bay. We're in winter almost 6 months out of the year, and I think if we had an indoor facility, it would really help the community when it comes to healthy and active living. The other thing too is that we need to fix the little things. You know, like we need to build change rooms at Eau Michelle, so that way we could have more sports or event tourism. You know, we need to fix up the bathrooms at the waterfront, so that way they're nice and they're appealing to people when they come to our city and when they visit our beaches. And you know, overall, I think that we've spent enough money in the downtown. We need to look at areas like Lakeshore and West Ferris, and we need to revitalize those areas and spend some money when it comes to infrastructure. And making a parkway in Lakeshore and having a left-hand turn lane is really going to help that area. And if you bring the hydro poles and the hydro lines underground while you're creating that parkway, it's going to make the area look that much nicer.
Okay, we go to the free-for-all, so to speak, and Al McDonald, I go by whoever put their hand up first.
Okay.
Mr. McDonald put his hand up first before you. Gary, go ahead, Al.
So thank you, Greg. 5 areas. So you asked about capital projects we want to spend more money on. The downtown waterfront master plan, I think it's crucial that we move forward. The downtown needs it. Castle Home, we have to look after our seniors. They've built our country, so that's one area that I want to see. The library is not as accessible as it needs to be. We need a new library. West Ferris Arena is past its lifespan. It needs to be replaced. And finally, because we have our MPP in power, I want to make sure that the Marshall extension is shovel ready. It does not mean that we're going to go out and spend all the money. We want to be shovel ready when the other level of government comes in so that we can invest in that extension into West Ferris.
There's been a lot of talk, Al. I'm just going to follow up with you on this about where the West Ferris Arena is supposed to be replaced, so to speak, with other locales. Michelle's been talked about. There was a mall proposal at the old mall on Lakeshore Drive. Give me a quick thought on where you think it should be.
I'm open. I always like to keep all the options on the table.
But you've got a lot of information that's come your way. You haven't narrowed it down yet?
No, because we still have to go out for all the tenders to see what is out there, and I know Councillor King is working on that. But Steve O'Michelle is a great example. The North Bay Mall is a great example. I just want to make sure we do the right thing. But the crucial part is we have to get going. In the first 6 months, this council is going to have to make a decision.
All right, Sheldon, you had your hand. Actually, no, so Gary, sorry, Gary.
Yeah. So in terms of our long-term capital plan, we absolutely have to invest more in our water and sewer infrastructure. It is decaying. If you read the Stantec asset management plan, it says we need to start investing now, and we need to do it seriously. And right now, people's have water problems in their houses, sewers back up in their homes, because we haven't addressed that in any meaningful way. Secondly, the library is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it other than accessibility. So in terms of priority, we need to concentrate first on what needs to be fixed before we build new buildings.
Sheldon.
Thanks, Greg. So not that I'm against a library, but I think our library is in perfect condition. Not perfect, but almost perfect. It's usable, you know, and to go and spend millions of dollars in a private-public partnership and sell off some land at the waterfront for commercial purposes, like I don't see the value in putting a library down there right away. I think it's putting the cart before the horse. And the other thing I want to note too is that you know, it's nice to say that Mayor MacDonald would like to focus on Castleholme, but you know, Castleholme, you know, from what I hear, you know, it was ready to get going eight years ago, you know, and how come we haven't been going and building Castleholme 8 years ago? Okay,
Will had his hand up next.
You know, sewer system should be done. Other than that, I think everything should be really slowed down. We got to look at our finances. We can't be spending millions and millions of dollars.
So we're going to get to that in a second. That's
everything.
Question 10.
So you know, the projects. I wouldn't go for an expensive rink on Omishaw where it's a swamp, or pay rent forever in a mall parking lot. Let's put it up on the university. They've offered the land for free. Their contractors can do it for $9 million, and they want to pay 10 years of ice rental fees.
Al.
Thanks, Greg. There is an infrastructure gap. Every city in North America is facing it. I think North Bay was a $50 million gap, but kudos to the previous councils and these councils that have been investing heavily in our infrastructure. I mentioned 130,000 or 130 million in the last 4 years. It's actually $250 million in the last 8 years. So we have been investing in our water and sewer, but there's no question that there is a gap and we need to do that. We have to keep investing, but our council and the previous councils have invested heavily in water and sewer and all our infrastructure.
Sheldon.
Thanks. And just to note too, like if you look at the 10-year capital plan, you know, I think that the next council does need to sit down and reprioritize some of the projects. There's some projects on there that you know, could be pushed out further ahead, and they shouldn't be focused on so soon.
Could you specify which ones?
Rehabilitation of City Hall.
Okay. That's question 10. Sorry, I kind of got ahead of myself. Continue on.
No, but so the city has a lot of money to put forward for capital, and I think that we need to focus that money on what counts for our people, and I think it's a discussion that the new council is going to need to have for sure.
Mr. Gardner, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm good.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Thanks, so, yeah.
Well, the next question does go to you then, if you're good,
Okay,
and
yeah.
we hope you have an answer for it.
Okay.
What capital projects, we kind of got into it a little bit, but let's get into it in more detail, do you think the city needs to pull back on?
Okay, so you know, it's real interesting this election, and there's lots of promises being made, and there's lots of dollars associated with those projects. So, you know, there's a proposal to extend Marshall Park, and that would be in the $50 million range. So we have to pull back on our promises, and we have to live within our means. And so We have to fix King's Landing. There's a promise to build new change rooms at Omisho. There's the new arena in play. And so we have to, before we start spending money on that stuff, we got to figure out if we can fund it. We have to look at our finances first.
Okay, Sheldon.
Yeah, so thank you. When it comes to finances, the city has the ability to borrow up to $200 million if it wanted to. I'm not saying that we go out and do it, but we have the capability to do it. The other thing too is we have $72 million in the bank, so we do have some capital there. And the other thing too is when it comes to what capital projects we should focus on, there was a report that came to council in this last term that said, it didn't say specifically to spend $50 million in the downtown to revitalize it, but it was suggesting that it go in stages, and I just don't think that we should be spending that money in the downtown core so quick. And then lastly, when it comes to King's Landing, I've kind of been going a little bit back and forth on this one, to be honest with you. There's a thought out there to just fix it. It is a historic piece in our city.
Okay,
however,
I'm going to stop you there. Al, you wanted to weigh in.
Yeah, I want to be very clear on my announcement on Marshall Park extension. It's really just to get it shovel ready, so doing the engineering services. There's no question that we need help from the province and the federal government to make that happen. So unless they come to the table in a really meaningful way, we won't be able to do it. But having said that, all governments, especially when they're going to elections, are looking for shovel-ready projects, so we need to be ready. This is our 10-year capital plan. So,
Al, before you, I just say that project's been talked about since you and I were in high school, and it still hasn't happened under many different councils, not just this one. Do you really think it's ever going to happen?
You know what? I want to be ready in case it is. And secondly, we have a wonderful member in provincial parliament by the name of Vic Fideli, who's the member or the Minister of Finance. If there was ever a time this was going to happen, this is a time we need to take advantage of.
All right, Will, do you want to weigh in on this one?
Sure.
Yeah,
a couple
ahead.
things that we got to slow money down on are definitely the waterfront. It looks beautiful already. Lots of volunteers do their work there. It's great the way it is. I can walk on the wharf and it looks fine to me. So we should be able to get a few more years out of it, and then once we invest more business and get more tax money and the ability to fund it, we'll look at doing that. The Marshall Park, even just to get it shovel ready, it's going to be wasting a whole bunch of taxpayers' monies that we don't have to put out. And
10 seconds.
That's about it.
Okay.
Okay,
Gary.
just on Marshall Park, just an interchange involved on a 4-lane highway is about, right now, in the range of 25 million. We would have to build a bridge over the train tracks. That's another 10 to 15 million. Out there, it's rock and there's swamp and there's a very expensive
Is there an economic payoff in doing it, though, Gary?
If you had 50 million, where would you spend it best? That's the question, and that's the question started out. What are the priorities? And so, for sure, Castleholme. We need to reinvest in Castleholme, and our portion is going to be 1.6 million, perhaps, for the next 30 years. So we have to look at priorities, and we have to focus, and we can use that money in better areas.
Okay, I was going to go on to the next question. Are you guys ready for that? Oh, Al wants to weigh in. Okay, go ahead, Al.
Yeah, I know that everybody's throwing this huge number out there, and overpasses do cost a lot of money. There's no question about it. But the economic impact of Ferris area, West Ferris needs assistance. All I'm saying is we just need to be shovel ready with the engineering drawings, and when the province comes to the table, there might be an opportunity. If there isn't, it's going to get delayed a little bit, but there's no question. I've already said that Castleholme was a priority, so it is just trying to make sure that we're ready for growth, and I'm all about growing the city.
Okay, Will. Next question goes to you. We've kind of talked about the arena already, but there is an aspect of the question that we didn't really get to yet. So, Will, I'm going to start with you. You get a minute. In regards to replacing the West Ferris Arena, should this be a community center as well as an arena? Go ahead.
Actually, my plan is to put move the arena up to the college. It's the most financially sound plan for the city. With moving it up to the university, I've talked to them. I'm bringing in a West Ferris campus. Once again, that'll depend on, we've talked about vertical farming to start that, or if we get a space program, or the air races.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Tell me what vertical farming is, because I'm lacking in
you put 4 walls up and you start growing vegetables under specific UV lights, yeah, it's more science. Yeah.
Okay, Sheldon had his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I definitely think that the new arena should be more of a community center. I think if you have 2 ice pads, 1 green field with a track around it so you can do soccer, football, and track and field. And then the other thing too that I would like to see in there is a daycare space that we can lease out to a private operator. You know, DSAB has said that they have over 1,200 children on a wait list for daycare, and I think when I speak to the private operators and the nonprofit operators, they say that they're having a hard time finding good space in North Bay to open up a daycare. So I think if you have a daycare within the community center, you can then go pick up your kids, have a bite to eat at the restaurant in the community center, and then also do your sports.
I'm going to give everybody 45 seconds so they get all their time in for their questions on the follow-ups. Gary had his hand up.
Okay, in terms of the West Ferris Arena and some type of replacement, for sure we have to have a West Ferris solution first and foremost, because that arena now functions as a community center. So I really like the proposal or the idea of the mall, the arena going down to the mall, because they talk more in terms of a community center. And when we realize in demographics, over 30% of our population now is 55 and older. So we have to look at programming that's going to involve seniors, and we have to provide programs and activities that they can participate in as well. So it's not just about hockey, it has to be more than just hockey.
Okay, anybody else before we go to break? Al?
Yeah, no question. The MRF committee got together, and the MRF study is available online. It showed when it did it, there was a need for 4.2 ice pads. Now it's up to 4.9 because of the battalion and all the varsity hockey. But there's no question it is a community center and it deserves to be down in Ferris. It just comes down to priorities. I mean, we'd love to have all kinds of things down there around the arena, but there's no question that there's a demand for ice time. We're hearing it from all the sports teams, regardless if it's hockey or ringette or figure skating. But it's a crucial...
But we haven't seen a lot of movement on it. We've seen a lot of talk and heard a lot of talk about it. What about movement?
Yeah, that's the point, Greg, and that's where the procedural bylaw change will make a difference, where one individual just can't keep pulling the item off the agenda.
Okay.
But that's incorrect, though. Council as a whole can vote to move an item ahead. The chair doesn't have the sole power to just stop an item at council. Al, the council can vote in favor to move an item forward.
So Greg, if I could, yes, if you go through the procedural bylaw, which delays it even longer, but a chair, as you know, can arbitrarily pull an item off the council docket without council's approval. They can do that. They have the right. Now, council can all get together and put a motion forward to bring it back, which has never happened, but a committee chair can pull something regardlessly without the council even debating it. So you're right that council can pull it back, but a committee chair can arbitrarily pull it. And we saw it happen about 9 or 10 times this term.
And why is that such a problem?
Because the council doesn't get a chance to debate it. So if, let's say, the arena or the Dion Quince or any project is forward, the chair, it could be the general government, it could be public works, it could be community services, can say, listen, as a chair, I have the authority to pull it back. So they do that, which can delay things.
Okay, I got to give Sheldon a chance here.
So here's where I'll argue for the other side. So as chair of general government, you know, we were about to vote on sending the Dion Quince home out of town. Okay, and there was talk around council in favor to do that around council. However, as chair, I saw the community starting to stand up and wanting to keep it in our city. So I used my ability as chair to put that item back on the agenda. And because of that, the Dion Quince home has stayed in North Bay.
So the fundamental difference, and I don't disagree that you did that, you're right. The fundamental area that I'm talking about is even before there's any debate, they can just pull it. And that's where we get frustrated. So you never did that, I'll be honest. You never pulled something just arbitrarily, but we did have other chairs pull something arbitrarily even before council could say, well, let's at least refer it to committee.
But at the very least, a majority of council can move an item forward without the chair if they
Okay,
need
Will.
And that right there is why nothing in North Bay ever gets done. Back and forth bickering between the two of them. I'm
How would you
completely
solve
neutral.
that, though? Because councilors do debate each other all the time.
Yeah, but I'm completely neutral. We need a new arena. It'll get done. It just won't be back and forth, and nothing getting done.
All right, I'm going to stop you there. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, a video question, and we're going to continue on with the 2018 Mayoral Debate, brought to you by, of course, Your TV, Cogeco, and the North Bay District Chamber of Commerce. Back in a couple. Welcome back, everybody. Greg Esterbrooks here for Your TV. We press on with Debate 2018 for the 4 mayoral candidates in the city of North Bay, brought to you by Your TV, Cogeco, and of course the North Bay District Chamber of Commerce. The arts, very big in North Bay, sometimes maybe under-publicized in some avenues, but still very, very important. We have another video question, this from Jamie Latham. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Jamie Latham, and I'm the Executive Director of Creative Industries in North Bay. The creative sector contributes more to the Ontario GDP than mining, forestry, and agriculture combined. North Bay's strategic plan points out fostering arts and culture as a key contributor to our economic prosperity. What would your approach be to fostering arts and culture in North Bay?
All right, so that question goes to Al McDonald first.
No, thank you, Jamie, for the question, and I'm very pleased that she quoted the strategic plan, because that was one of the areas that I really wanted in our strategic plan. So I'm a big believer in the arts. Our capital centre is the MV of Northern Ontario, there's no question about it. We do have a cultural roundtable. There's mixed reviews on that, but there's still great community partners. I've worked with Katie Bevan, Holly Cunningham, and local champions to get matching funding from the city. So that was one of my priorities last term, was to be able to get money raised in the community, matched by city funds, and that way they could go out and get provincial and federal money. I will say this, Jamie Latham and that whole group has done a tremendous job. I have the highest praise for those individuals. They're doing a wonderful job for us. I think what we really need to do now is to bring the business leaders in so that they can fully understand how important their support is. But there's no question that I believe arts and culture should have a budget line item that we can fund, and I'm a big champion of creative industries, and I really believe...
Okay, I'm stopping you there. I got your point. Go ahead, Gary Gardner.
Oh, okay, so one of my first planks that I came out with in terms of this election campaign was the Community Investment Fund. And the Community Investment Fund would be a fund that would fund arts and culture as one of its priorities. And this fund would be funded through North Bay's share of casino revenues. And so once it gets established, it would create sustainable funding for arts and culture so that they know that the money is always going to be there. And I think that's important. And I'm the only candidate so far that's came out and stated that I'm in favor of the casino, so I would like to hear from the other candidates on that issue.
We'll get to that question in a bit. Sheldon, you want to weigh in on the arts question?
Sure. So first of all, I am supportive of a casino as well, but I'm sure we'll talk about it
later.
But we'll talk about the arts and culture. So there's so many good things happening in the arts and culture industry here in North Bay, and you know, I'm absolutely in favor of the arts and culture, and I was sitting on council when I advocated for funds for creative industries, and I'm supportive of continuing that funding going forward. And the other thing too is we got to look at what's going on with film. Like, there's so many good things happening in the film industry right now here in our city, and I would love to see that continue. And I'm very much in favor of reducing.
A lot of that comes from the province, though, and grant money. Let's be honest. I mean, the city's benefiting from it, but isn't it fair to say? So, what can the city do to further enhance that?
So what we can do to further enhance that is to be constantly available, and our ECDev team does a great job at doing that, but we could be even more available to the film industry. And I think our ECDev team does need to take a trip to Hollywood to go meet with other production studios to just tell them about North Bay, show them some scenery that we have here. We have beautiful scenery, and I think that that industry
send them a video link or something like that. They have to go in person.
We could do that too, but when you go in person, it's that much more personable.
Will.
The arts are definitely a big part of North Bay. With bringing the university into the Capital Centre, they will bring expertise, shows, everything needed that the city can't provide. Being a huge entity, universities have the funding and stuff to do that, and it'll improve the arts that way. And I'd also put a portion of the casino revenue towards the arts as well.
All right, let's move on to the next question. This one goes to Mr. Forget. The community is concerned with an aging population not being addressed as quickly and as efficiently as we need. It's commonplace not just in North Bay, but it is a problem in North Bay as well. How do we get ahead of the curve to address the wait lists that we have, and they are long?
Sorry, the wait list.
The wait lists.
The wait list for Castleholm, or
well, just I guess the question just says finding places to care for our aging population.
Okay, so there's a lot happening in our city. We have a new hospice that's being built, and there's a lot of community champions that are involved with that, and they're building a hospice. But when I want to talk about senior housing for a minute, Castle Home has been delayed for so long, and you know, a big reason why that's been delayed for so long is because City Council has not been willing to co-sign for the loan to get Castle Home going. And I say, why not co-sign for the loan? Let's get the construction started. Let's get that project moving along, so that way seniors have a place to live a lot sooner. And I do know that there are other struggles with the Castle Home development when it comes to getting the other communities on board. But we need to be a bit more aggressive with those communities that are part of Castle Home as well. And we need to tell them, you know, it's time to get this moving. You know,
okay.
Our seniors are waiting, and it's not fair.
Okay, anybody? Al?
Yes, so Castle Home is delayed because of the province. It's the provincial government that's not approving it. It's not council. Council's unanimously behind it. Everybody voted in favor of it. All we're waiting for is a final approval on Castle Home. And when I spoke with MPP Fideli, he's made it a priority to get it through his government. So to blame council, that's not correct. The outside municipalities, they've already come to the table. They've already said they're very supportive of it. So I think we can all agree that Castle Home needs to move forward. But to say that it's a problem at the local level, absolutely not. It's the province.
Okay, anybody? Gary?
Yeah. So you know, we're talking about facilities for seniors as they age, and one thing I'd like to see is more private sector investment in this area. That they would build senior appropriate housing that suits their needs. And so far, I've talked to developers out there. They're not happy with the red tape at City Hall. So we're going to have to look at ways that we can work with developers.
What red tape are you talking about, Gary?
Well, the permitting, sometimes zoning changes and stuff. They just don't feel that they're getting as good a service as they could have, and they feel they could be treated better because they're coming with a lot of money to invest. So I think we just need to find out what the problems are and solve them, because there are investors with money. They do want to put it here. So what are the problems? Let's solve them.
Al?
I agree. I think the private sector can play a role. As a matter of fact, I've been working with Leisure World for the last 18 months, and they want to redevelop their site, so there's going to be an expansion there. We see Castle Home. We just have to look at DSAB and Jimmy Colios, what they're doing for affordable housing. There's no question that that's a success story, so I'd like to see more of that. As for city staff, we put a DART team together, and you heard Sudbury. Sudbury came out and said, we're the best place to invest. Not to say that there aren't challenges. Some of the things that are handcuffing our staff, though, is the Ontario building codes and the Ontario ruling. Look at the old hospital site. It's still stuck at the OMB. It's not because of the city, it's because of the OMB process. So this is where we need our member of provincial parliament to assist our local developers and work with our staff to be able to get the projects through.
I'm going to stop you on that one. We're going to move on to Carrie Gardner for the next question. This is one major step forward for those getting into the workforce is finding affordable housing. That's been touched on a little bit. How would you encourage, as mayor of North Bay, more developers to ensure we have enough affordable housing in North Bay, which you already kind of touched on, but again, if you can go into more detail.
Well, one of the great things that staff did this past year was they looked at the introducing second dwelling units within a home. So that means that a developer now could build a residential home in R1 zoning, and they can put an apartment in that. So that would allow a young family that wants to qualify for a mortgage, they can count the revenue from that second dwelling unit towards paying for their mortgage. And that's never done before. And we're the only municipality within this area that's done that. So we've beat Callander and East Ferris to the punch. So we just need developers to realize that this is a great opportunity.
Anybody? Sheldon first.
So something that I would like to look at with the new council is actually completely reducing development fees. You know, there are some developments that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars just in a sort of like a tax to the city. Here you go, we pay this, and now we're able to develop our land. You know, and I think that, you know, if we want people to come to our city, why are we charging them a tax to come here? Now I realize that there's sometimes infrastructure that needs to be put in place for that development to happen, but with areas that are already you know, they're already built up, there's already infrastructure there. Why are we charging a development tax?
Well, I'm going to follow up with you on that. As the budget chief for 4 years, you know, didn't you ever think about maybe trying that 3 years ago or 2 years ago?
Yeah, so we did reduce it. There was for houses that are under 1,500 square feet, it was reduced to 0. So.
Anybody, Al had his hand up. Sorry, Al, go ahead.
Yeah, so no, I agree. I think we should be waiving the development charges for affordable housing. There's no question. The question is, why haven't you done it? Is a good question, Greg. Yeah. Let me answer it for you. Under the previous government, the Liberal government, if we took the development charges out of our bylaw, they would claw back money that they were sending to us in the municipal transfer fund. So one, we wanted to remove the development charges completely, but secondly, we would have been penalized, so we couldn't do that. We believe under the new regime, who is very pro-business, that they won't penalize us on the transfer funds, so I'd like to see the development charges removed.
Okay. Anybody? Gary, go ahead.
So I'm confused. I mean, a smaller house under, I think it's actually 1,200 square feet, there is no development charge. So I think that's important. I think also we'll realize when we compete for that housing start, we're competing with Callander, East Ferris, Nipissing. So we got to do a good job of selling the North Bay advantage here so that we do get uptake and people buying homes here. You know, we have full-time firefighting services, we have full-time police, we have a hospital that's located strategically within the community so people can get there fast when it's an emergency. And don't forget, there's no real commute here if you live in North Bay, so you save money in terms of car expenses and gasoline and stuff. So we just need to do a better job of selling the North Bay advantage to home buyers, and I think that's a priority.
Sheldon.
Yeah, so Gary's absolutely right, and you know, on top of this too, like the city of North Bay is in good financial standing. For me, it's a no-brainer. Remove the development fees and let's build condos. Let's get development started and let's see building happening in our city.
Our housing starts, and I don't care who answers this question, are they lower now than they were a few years ago? And I know it's not just a municipal issue. Well, in a way it is, but I mean there are other factors. I just want to. Al wanted to talk next, so go ahead.
Well, I'm going to answer the question for you. So there was 27 single-family dwellings, and that's the figure that keeps getting thrown out there. But now with an aging population, it's changed. People are buying multi-res, they're buying condos, they're buying semis. So in 2017, there was 154 new dwelling units. That could be an apartment, that could be a townhouse, it could be a semi. So when people quote 27 single-family dwellings, they're not counting the 9 townhouses on Wallace Road. So in total, there's no question that we want to attract people to live here. And if you live in the outlying area, your insurance is higher because it's volunteer fire department, your gas, your insurance. But there's no question we're seeing building 154 units in 2017.
Gary Gardner.
Yeah, so single-family dwellings was a bellwether mark that the building department has tracked for the last 10 years. So 10 years ago, we were building approximately 100 new single-family dwellings, and that continued to drop. And now, for the last 2 years, around 25, 26, 27. So when you look at your bellwether mark, that's just, you can follow the trend, and we're suffering. And if you look outside of our area, they're building more single-family dwellings outside of North Bay than they're building inside of North Bay.
Will wanted to weigh, and then we're going to move on to the next question.
So the answer is simple. We need to create more jobs so everybody has more income. Low-income housing definitely needs to be built, but the problem's we got to get people more income in this city. We need to create jobs. We need to make sure they're good-paying jobs so everybody can afford to do what they want.
You've talked about a few things, but outside of those things you've talked about, like the Red Bull thing and the space, any other ideas that you have in regards to creating jobs?
No, I would probably just go to the university and listen to the kids and see what new technology is coming out and see what we can get onto. It's the vertical farming and space and everything's just sort of a step in a new direction, a new idea, some things we can do with our land and that.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. You're up next. This came in from Facebook, and it kind of ties into something you said in your introduction, or introductory statement. The Facebook question was winter road maintenance. There's no other question. It just says winter road maintenance. I guess you're not happy with it.
Yeah, it's It's horrible. It snows and you go out and people can't walk to bus stops, people can't drive on the road. We're in the snow for 8 to 10 months a year, you know. How council doesn't know how to budget for proper road maintenance and to get our roads clear for when we go into the morning commute. I'd look to diverting some of the funds that I'm going to save with the Capital Center and the library, putting it into road maintenance, and you know, you can wake up and drive to work and not skid out.
Okay, Al had his hand up next. Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, so I think we're spending $2.8 million a year clearing snow, and you're right. Well, I'll be honest, it's a challenge for the men and women that try to clear it. So the sidewalk plow will go by, it warms, it sinks down, people walk on it, gets icy again, then we can't plow it. There's no question that they're doing the best that they can. We can throw more money at it. We could put another 2, 3, 4, 500,000 if you want into it, but it is a challenge, and we live in Northern Ontario. So I'm not diminishing the challenge that we have, but I can tell you that women and men work hard. I think one of the things—
stop you there, Al, just before, because there's actually we have a video clip of the actual Facebook question to get into more specifics, and then I'll let Al finish for about 15 seconds, and then we'll move on. With winter fast approaching, I'd like to know what the city intends to do about the ongoing and worsening winter road maintenance, or lack thereof. Snow removal, sanding, salting, keeping roads, sidewalks clear and safe in a timely manner, and bus stops with respect to sidewalk plows. Al, I'm going to give you another 15 seconds or so to finish your thought, and then we're going to hear from the rest of the panelists.
So, yeah, salt. That's the number one, that's the concern. The province wants us to reduce our salt use, and that's the most effective material that we can use to get our roads down to pavement.
Okay, anybody? Sheldon.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Jenny, for the question. I was an advocate for more winter maintenance the moment I was elected back in 2014. And the other thing I want to point out, too, is that I'd be interested in looking at different ways of doing snow plowing. There's equipment out there that you can attach to your snow plows where it'll cut the snow off before it passes your driveway, and then that way there you don't have to actually shovel the snow at the end of your driveway. So I think there are new things that we can do in winter maintenance that would make it easier for you at home. The other thing I'd like to even look at too is red light buttons in our snow plows, so that way our snow plows can shovel the snow more efficiently, and when they have a red light and there's no traffic, they can keep going instead of stopping.
All right, anybody before we move on to the next question? We're good? Okay. This one goes to Al first. Sports tourism has been a big industry in recent years. Lots of evidence of that in 2018. Do you think North Bay, though, is capturing its fair share of this market?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a leader in Ontario. We adopted the sports tourism strategy 6 years ago. It was the previous council. We had members of the previous council that aren't on council that were true champions, so I just want to give them kudos. Melinda Fry and Larry Tugas are just absolute champions when it comes to sports tourism. You look at what Dave Bennett, Mark Brown, and Rick Miller did with the World Curling Championships. I was involved with robotics, but we have to change the term sports tourism to event tourism, because dance or theater or archery, any type of event that brings a massive amount of people in is critical.
Do you market this in a specific target? Do you target cities?
We actually target associations. Okay. So for an example, Larry will go talk to all the athletic directors across the province to bring their championships in. So if you really think of event tourism, it's one person that's bringing in 500 people. So Greg, if you're the leader of your TV association across the province, you're able to bring in 500 people, so we only have to talk to one person. So you can imagine if we talk to 50 people like that, that's what the secret is. And all communities are looking at us and calling us, asking for our best practices. I'll be honest, we don't really want to share it because we don't want to create more competition, but it's a multi-billion-dollar business. Yeah.
Anybody else want to weigh in on sports tourism? Gary.
Okay, well, you know, for sure we have to fix the change room challenges at Omisho, because it's a bit embarrassing when we bring in events and they have to change in their hotel room, and so we're going to have to fix that if we want to do better.
Lot in some areas,
yeah, or do better for sport tourism. The second thing is we need more vitality in our community in terms of what can you do after the event's over. So that's why the casino is really an important consideration. And also, you know, I've gone out and said that I think our waterfront, we need a slight commercialization down there, which would include an all year round restaurant, so that we can attract people and we give them something else that they can do after the event's over.
Okay, anybody before I move on to the next question? Sheldon?
Yeah, so the #1 event this year for event tourism was the Women's World Curling. The #2 was a gymnastics event, believe it or not. And there's more to North Bay than just hockey and ice and winter events. And I think it's important that we get the change rooms done at Omichel, and I think it's important that we bring an indoor green field in North Bay. You know, Sudbury has an indoor soccer green field.
How do we pay for it, Sheldon?
It's very, very simple. So we basically, we have some capital in our bank that we can use to pay for it. We also can borrow money to pay for it. And they're not as expensive as you might think.
Anybody before we move on? Will?
Sports tourism is doing pretty good right now. I'd be looking at putting the arena up at the college and university, and once again, they'll help bring in more schools, young people into the community, and just build on the great stuff we have going right now.
All right, we're going to move on to the next question. Al, quickly.
Okay, sorry. Tourism North Bay can play a big role with the accommodation tax now. They're going to play a big role, but kudos to Larry Tugas and Melinda Fry. They're the champions.
All right, next one goes to Sheldon Forget. Mr. Forget, do you see any efficiencies, and you talked about it a little bit earlier, in emergency services in North Bay? Do you see any way to trim budgets? Because they are fairly big budgets.
Yeah, so it's a very large budget, and I'll talk specifically about police right now, just because I've been looking at what some cities across Ontario are doing, specifically Ottawa. So if you get your bike stolen in North Bay right now, or if you get something, if some bit of damage done to your property, you have to call the police. The police come to your house and they take a report. In Ottawa, you can actually file your report online, and it allows that police officer to actually be in the field working on, you know, more important things than taking that report. The other thing too is, you know, there's all kinds of things we could do with technology, and you know, when you look at it, our finance department is using computer systems that are almost 20 years old. Okay, so you know, we've got to look at doing a better job in our technology department.
Mr. Gardner.
Yeah. So in terms of emergency services, our police services is absolutely critical in this environment that we have right now. And so probably instead of saving money, we're probably going to have to increase the budget there somehow, because what's happening with mental health and drug addiction in this city has to be solved, and it probably is going to take more manpower. And so in this case, it's going to be an investment that pays off down the road, because if we don't fix this problem, we're going to be in serious trouble.
Okay, anybody before we go to a break? Will?
Efficiencies, you know, we can look at them maybe hiring a mechanic and keeping all their car work in-house instead of contracting it out. We can look at keeping their cars longer. You know, most of them drive newer cars than any of us in this town, so you know, let's keep them for longer mileages. You can put a mechanic to work on it. We can save money that way. And, you know, if it comes down to it, we can always look at the OPP.
We're going to get to that. That question's coming up later on, so I'm going to stop you there.
I like the local police, but costs, you know, got to come down.
We're going to get there later. Al?
Yeah, no, we're going to get to that later. I just want to say that I'm a big supporter of the women and men of the North Bay Police Service.
Okay, well, we're going to get to that later.
But kudos to the chief, both fire and police, and Jean-Marc over at the ambulance center. They're finding efficiencies every day, and they never get enough credit. So I just want to say kudos to them.
So you're happy with the budgetary commitments of these organizations?
Yeah, they do what they can with the regulations that they're faced with. So
all right.
I think they're doing a great job.
I'm going to stop you there because we have to go to another break. We'll be back with the, well, not the final segment, but another segment of the 2018 Mayoral Debate here on Your TV, sponsored or co-sponsored by the North Bay District Chamber of Commerce. Back in a couple. We are back, everybody, for 2018's Mayoral Debate here on Your TV North Bay. Greg Esterbrooks is your moderator, which is me. And we're going to go now to the next question. And it's one that's on a lot of people's mind. It's been on a lot of people's minds for a long time. Revival of the West Ferris area, the Lakeshore Drive Strip. There's a lot of empty stores there, and things have been not looking great the last few years. Gary, how would you solve that?
Oh, okay, so you know, one thing I talk about is infill, and so that means building houses where there's already existing services, and we know that West Ferris is a great place to live. So how do we incentivize the building of new homes or condos, etc., in Ferris? And we also know that there's some landowners there that are that own a large portion of the waterfront, and we need to work with those developers to figure out how they will turn that land into development. So I think that's a key, because if you drive along Lakeshore and you look, there's a lot of empty space there along the waterfront. So we need to work with the developer that owns that land, and we need to figure out how we can work together to make that land get developed.
Okay, anybody want to weigh in on this next? Anybody? Sheldon has your hand up. Go ahead. How do you revitalize West Ferris and Lakeshore Drive and the business strip along there?
So much like the downtown has, I think West Ferris deserves a grant system where businesses can apply for grants to revitalize their buildings and their properties to make the West Ferris and Lakeshore area look more appealing. The other thing I'd like to see is Lakeshore Drive widen a bit with a parkway design with a left-hand and right-hand turning lane.
How will that help, Sheldon?
Well, it helps for easier traffic flow, okay? And when you have easier traffic flow, it's easier to go to the area, which means the businesses in those areas are going to get more customers. And the other thing I'd like to see is I'd like to see more development happen in Lakeshore. I want our economic development staff to be focused on that area as well as other areas in the city.
Anybody? Al?
Yeah, no, I mean, West Ferris is getting its fair share of ink in the media for sure, but you talk to the real estate agents, families want to live in Ferris. It's a great family place. The streets are all windy. You've got the Cape Pace Trail, you've got the beaches that are down there.
I still see a lot of empty stores in that area of town though, Al.
So, but if you compare Lakeshore Drive to Airport Hill, I mean, I used to live up on Airport Hill. You had to drive down to McEwen to even go to a grocery store. There's still grocery stores down there. We're working on trying to get another bank down there. That's for another day. But the facilities that are down there are wonderful. But retail's changing now. Everybody's going online shopping. We're trying to promote shop local, but Canadians it's easy to go online. So please, if you're watching at home, consider supporting the businesses that are on Lakeshore Drive. But there's no question the business environment is changing.
But doesn't West Ferris maybe need something significant as a drawing card? I'll give you 30 seconds, and I'm going to get everybody else to kind of weigh in on that follow-up, because we see what's going on in McEwen, but we don't see it in West Ferris, and there's still a lot of people live in West Ferris. So do you think you need some rallying business or some facility to get people to go there?
Well, you see the malls aren't, the North Bay Mall isn't doing that well, and you see everybody going to Northgate, but everybody wants to be on the highway, and Lakeshore used to be the highway coming into town, so that's part of our challenge. But I think removing the development charges down in that area. The other challenge that we have, I know I only have 30 seconds, Greg, is it's significant wetlands. So we need, if we're going to develop that down there, the province needs to change that regulation, because we have an industrial park down there. It has paved roads and internet, and we can't use it.
Will? And then Gary.
To revitalize West Ferris, I've in my plan said we're going to bring a university campus down there. We're going to look at new innovating technology that they can bring a program down to West Ferris and create labs and different buildings. The students down there will create businesses or new business for all the jobs. With my plan to move the rink up to the university campus, we look to put a outdoor rink like they have in Callander, a covered rink, and a community center on the current West Ferris site. You know, I'm with the business grants as well. We can use the revenue from the Red Bull air racing to put towards that. With this race, we have a potential millions of dollars coming into our city. Why would they come here?
You mentioned Red Bull many, many times. Why do you think they would pick North Bay?
Well, through my conversations with them, I've highlighted the Air Force Base. I've given them pictures. They've done their research on it. We have a 10,000-foot runway. We have an aviation school on the airport. Like I've got a report right here that shows all the things they will do to bring the program here. You know, we need some smart people in North Bay to take it to the next step and make this a reality.
Stop you there. We're going to move on to the next question, and I believe it is to you, Mr. Wilblasson. Summer in the Park's been in the news a lot lately for a variety of reasons. What do you see as its future? Do we expand it, get rid of it, leave it the same?
It's definitely in a rough spot right now. We definitely need a community event. We just have to look at tweaking it. Maybe the long weekend in August isn't the right time. Everybody wants an air show. I'm working on bringing one. Maybe we can coordinate it with this. We're going to have tons of people in town. You know, but we definitely do have to keep a festival in town.
We don't know what the loss is yet, but despite losses.
Yeah, and you know, we're going to have to, you know, use some, I'd hate to say it, common sense, and you know, do what's right for the community. We can't have six-figure losses, you know, it just can't happen.
Okay, Sheldon had his hand up first, so we're going to go to Sheldon on Summer in the Park. What do we do with it?
Thanks, Greg. So first of all, a festival is not created to make a profit. A festival is created to bring your community together, and I'm a huge advocate for Summer in the Park. I think the volunteers do a tremendous job, city staff, and you know, they do so much good work there. What I say is, let's bring back the Heritage Festival. You know, let's put the event back where it should be. Let's have more local bands instead of trying to get one big band to come to North Bay. Let's get more local bands, more Canadian local bands, and on top of that, bring back the smaller events, okay? And if you are able to get like a boat racing show come to North Bay happening at the same time.
I follow up with you quickly though, when you said that it's not there to make money, but how much money can it lose and still be sustainable in your opinion?
If you look at Timmins, they're losing in the multi-million-dollar range, right? I don't think we should go that far, but I think a six-figure loss is not a bad loss. Gary. I think it's about...
Okay, I think the days of big-time bands is over because you can't please everybody, and it's very difficult when you have a big band because it has a certain type of music to attract everybody. And so we have to go back to smaller events, and we have to start the dialogue with the community and find out what would be better. Perhaps, I mean, I don't know, but maybe we should have 8 weekends in a row, similar to Sheldon suggesting that we have smaller events, local bands. Perhaps those each weekend a service group could be involved in that to help them make money. And we got to go back to a family-orientated event so that the families can bring their relatives back to North Bay and they can enjoy the weekend. And so I think really important to involve the community and find out what they want.
Up again.
I just wanted to finish my final point. I would also look at moving Summer in the Park / Heritage Festival, not in the August long weekend, but September long weekend, where the students are here in North Bay, because if the students are here in North Bay, they'll be able to participate in the festival, which would then drive a lot more people there. And why not look at having $20 wristbands again for the whole weekend?
Al, I wanted to get you to wait, because you were also, when the Heritage Festival had 30,000 people down the waterfront, you were the chair of that event as well. A lot of people want to know, you know, is it worth it? Because there's a significant loss this year.
Well,
anyway.
so I don't know how much time I have, but I'm pretty passionate, and you're right, Greg. We had, I think when I was the chair, we had 35,000 wristbands, and it was a community event. There was no question about it.
And there were big bands.
There were big bands, and the air show. So Will's right. The air show actually made it, and the wristbands only paid for about 30% of the event. It was sponsorships and the vendors that paid the other part. I will say this though, the commitment from council ended this year. This was the last year. I think Summer in the Park is dead, and council is going to have to do something else. There's some ideas here which I think are worth merit, but there's no question. I have a plank that's coming out, so I don't want to give it away as I did the other night.
Time on live television to give it away.
I did that the other night, and it got pre-printed before I could even release it. But there's no question the new council will have to decide which direction they want to go in.
Anybody else want to weigh in on Summer in the Park before I move on to the next question? Because we still have some time left. Anybody? Okay. All right, that's the end of that question. People are saying, this is number 20, we're going to go to Al on this one, and I'm going to have to start finding some others. People say there are no jobs, yet statistics state businesses are indeed hiring. I know you've talked about this before, Al. Jobs, no people. People, no jobs. how do we overcome this challenge, and how do we plug people in, so to speak, to those jobs, so we can show that there are opportunities in North Bay? And are there opportunities for young people to stay in North Bay? Because a lot of people have said, and you hear this all the time, there's nothing for the young people, they have to leave.
Yeah, no, it's challenging. There are people looking for work, there's no question, and there's, I don't know how many employers are in my office saying they can't find the skilled people. So if you're at home, just Google, or just go on this website,